Hello and welcome to Tokyo Inklings. My name is CY. You can find me on my website at tokyostationpens.com, on Instagram and TikTok at Tokyo Station Pens, and on Twitter at Tokyo Station MNH.
My name is Jacob. I am Foodafan on Instagram and on Twitter, and have a blog at foodafan.com.
And this is episode 52. And before we start, we want to take a moment to recognize, what's happening around the world. Obviously, we're talking about the situation, the war in Ukraine. There are a bunch of pen makers who have very generously decided to donate their time and their efforts into helping out the Ukrainian people. So we're going to put their details in the show notes. We don't want to go too far into the details of the weeds of what's happening, but we do encourage everybody to check it out. Check out the stuff that they're doing, because I think they're doing amazing work and making amazing pens as well. So yeah, when you have the time, do check them out from the show notes.
Yeah, I agree. It was very encouraging to see that our little community decided to help out in a way they could. So yeah.
That's right. Now, today we're going to be talking mostly, I believe, about pen events. I know some folks in the world, COVID and whatnot, aren't really able to go out to pen events. I know personally, whenever I take these Instagram stories of going to different pen shops, everybody really, really likes that. Let's talk about the big one, right? We've talked about it already in the past. We kind of analyzed and looked at their releases, but finally, I think the start of a pen enthusiast's year, which ironically also symbolizes the end of the Japanese financial year, is the Maruzen Pen Fair.
Yeah.
We like going to this pen fair, right? We like going to this pen fair.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say that before Tokyo International Pen Show, Maruzen's Spring Fair was basically the biggest event of the year. And it still remains one of the most popular pen events of the year. And this ties into a topic later during the podcast, but there were two pen events in succession, right?
Yes.
In the spring, right? And that was we know people who came from Hong Kong and elsewhere just to go shopping in March in Tokyo.
Absolutely. And just as a reminder for those of you who might be listening for the first time, Maruzen is I would say it's like a bookshop in Japan. It's a national bookshop. There are stores everywhere, but their Nihonbashi store, the first store, and Maruzen had a huge hand in introducing and popularizing fountain pens in Japan. They were the first department store to import fountain pens, specifically from Onoto. They popularized the Onoto style pens that we see so often in a lot of, I would say, Japanese copies. So their pen fair is also historic, not purely, all fun and games. So even though it's not a huge brand, I guess, compared to some of the other big names such as Itoya, I'd say Itoya is probably bigger in terms of stationery. Maruzen still has a very dedicated stationery corner.
I would say they have been a stationery and bookstore for a long time. I mean, they started
for longer.
As I said, they started importing fountain pens over 120 years ago. So they've been doing this for a while, and much longer than Itoya. And actually, the company is much bigger than Itoya. But
mostly focused on books.
Yeah, they have more books there than stationery for sure. But yeah, the two big Maruzen stores in around Tokyo Station, the one in Owazo and the one we're talking about now, the one in Nihonbashi, they have a lot of stationery, a lot of pens, a lot of paper, a lot of inks.
That's right. And as we talked about in previous episodes, we had expected that the Pilot Custom Urushi in green would be extremely popular. We knew that it had pretty much sold out before the event even started. And so we went to pick ours up.
And one thing I noticed, when you go there, they had printed these like flyers with the information about the pens available at the store, and they had removed Custom Urushi. Did you see that? Because otherwise people would ask about them, I guess.
they in some of the other photos I saw that they had sold out, just like plastered all over.
So what happened, if I understand correctly, is that Maruzen has this like members club called Tomonokai, and they send out these postcards to the members of Tomonokai first. They get to pre-order before other people, right? And apparently this custom Urushi pen sold out from Tomonokai pre-orders, so before the general public even got a chance to pre-order, and this happened just within days, as far as I understand.
Yep. I know that these are super popular. I know that you can't find these. This is the type of pen that you cannot buy even if you had money, right? So I know folks who've, get tons. I had somebody contact me getting one, so I picked one up as well. But yeah, this I think definitely always their most popular release.
Yeah, so this was their second ever limited edition custom Urushi. So the first one was, I think, 2 years ago, the blue one, and that was a bit of a surprise, or rather the popularity. It was a surprise to many people that it sold out from pre-orders. So a lot of people who were planning to come to Japan or just visit Maruzen during the pen fair to pick up this pen, they didn't get a chance to, because the pen was sold out before the pen fair even started. So there were a lot of people that missed out on the blue one who wanted the green one for that reason. So I think there were even more people trying to get the green one this time.
Yeah, so I'm reading the comments on your Instagram post, which everybody should go check out. And lots of people are saying, "Oh my god, and you have two!"
Well, I did get 3, but not for myself. There's some people asked me to get some. So I have none right now.
Yeah. But yeah, it's cool. And something that I think we all noticed was that the pen fair area, I think, was smaller this year. They used to have 2 cashiers. And in fact, they used to have loads of salespeople directly from the manufacturers as well, all over the promotional corner as well. I believe this year that area is mainly glass cases, and of course you can look at the pens, but the most interesting stuff was in the regular area, and stuff that you were able to pre-order, whereas in previous years some of the manufacturers would also bring their things over. And noticeably, Nakaya wasn't there on the first day. They're doing a separate thing. They're still part of the fair, but they're doing a separate thing, I think, from the third day to the last day. So I believe we'll be heading back today to maybe check that out. But yeah, it was definitely smaller than previous years.
Maybe smaller, but maybe they just changed the formula a bit, because that always struck me as a bit odd about how they did things before. As you say, they had like Aurora, they had Pelican, maybe Pilot, and others showing off their pens, but those were all standard production models, pens that you could go any day to Maruzen and buy or test
That's
out.
right.
So there wasn't really a reason to go to the pen fair to try out the Parker pen there, right? You could all do that any day. So maybe they are focusing more now on things that you cannot normally buy, so like handicraft from like smaller vendors and stuff, which would be a good idea. Yeah.
And the other pens, I think, of note, obviously there was the Sailor Shishikura Owl.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Jacob. I believe that and obviously this pen was not in the original photos, but I believe that people said it was brown.
I went to Marsden like a few months ago, and I asked them, do you have any more information about this old pen? And they said it's going to be brown. That's pretty much what we know at this point.
Yeah, the pen is not brown.
Right.
The pen, the cap is a translucent red, and the body is this gray color with I believe gold furnishings. So I think the owl nib is going to be very, very popular. But as usual for Maruzen, this is not the first thing to sell out. Contrary to what I think a lot of Western fans might have believed, since it's actually, funnily enough, the lowest, almost one of the lowest priced items.
Yeah, and that says something about the kind of special limited editions you have at Maruzen, and that's something that our friend Alessa has often commented about, and which is true, that this is only like very high-end pens at the Maruzen fair, so you can't go there and buy some like 10,000, 20,000 yen pen. That's not what a pen fair is about.
Yeah. However, ironically, I think we've been talking about Sailor's price increases for a long time. There was one item that I think was even cheaper outside the inks, right? And that's the Eboya pen.
Yeah, I didn't actually see that one. I was in a bit of a hurry, but based on the postcard, it didn't. I remember we talked about how they said that this was like blue as in the sky over New Hombashi or something like that, but it looked like a blue colorway I already seen from Eboya before.
So I have one of these pens. And I think, the fit and finish obviously are fantastic. We talked about how well Eboya polishes their ebonite. This to me looks like a teal version of the Mitsukoshi Manten.
The Manten was a really good one. Yeah.
And the Manten was kind of like a dark blue. This one is a teal version of that. And I remarked that to Indo-san's. I believe that is his wife. I'm not sure, but she's Lady Endo-san, and she's like, yeah, actually, you're right. It does kind of look like Manten. This is, I believe, should be the M size, which it's a fantastic pen. It's fit with a Bach 250, and yeah.
Are you sure? Sorry, are you sure there's a Bach 250? Because I remember seeing that the L, M, and S Eboyas, they have different size Bach housing.
I can check later, but to my eyes, it kind of looked like 250.
Okay.
It's not this is not the result of research.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, it did look like a size 6-ish nib. They had also their ton pens there. They're very popular ton pens, but only in 3 colors. And they brought also their colorful ebonites of their of that torpedo plumix shaped pen that they have. And I think that Eboya was really the vendor. Eboya and Ohashido, they were not on the basement floor as the main event is, but they were on the first floor. And I think they were the ones who really kind of treated it almost like a pen show. So I think that it was funny. It's like a retail event with 2 pen show vendors up on the first floor all alone.
But then you also had Hirai and some other like wooden pen makers on like 2nd or 3rd floor, right? Yeah,
they always come and they go to like all the events, but I've never seen anybody buying a pen from them.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so I do feel kind of bad for that. Could be a good Urushi base, but they're always not the draw of the event for some reason.
I'm not sure if we talked about it on the podcast, but there's this there's this trend going on in Japan where, like, especially high school kids, they want fancy ballpoints and mechanical pencils with this like wooden shell or whatever you call it. And one of those pen makers, I think the Red Line, was on the second or third floor, and I think that was the same vendor that had this massive queue at Tokyo Pen Show, but here I didn't see anyone looking at their pens.
You're talking about Kobo Setsu, I believe, and we'll get to that in a bit as well. But I think, yeah, those kids, they specifically want pens from this guy, right?
Yeah, I think there was one company that started this whole trend, and then there was another. Then now there's a whole bunch of these wooden pen makers that make similar ones now, right?
Yeah, and I remember, we walked past the booth as well, and we were saying, we just don't understand this trend, but it doesn't seem to be a fountain pen trend. It seems mostly to be, not super cheap, but I'm looking at their Instagram. They have stuff which they say is like the mid-tier stuff from like 7,000, 6,000 yen, and it's fairly reasonable.
But this is not the one that started this whole thing. I can't remember the name of it, but this one company, Yano or something like that. I need to look it up. That started the whole thing, and pens from that company now you can find them on Mercari for like over 150,000 yen.
Yeah, that's wild. That's wild. I thought that even though this event was much smaller than, or felt much smaller than the past events, I personally feel like I was impressed at how busy still everybody was. There was still a line to get to the counter, to get to the register. There were like, usually there's 2 or 3 staff manning the booth. But this time there were like 10 staff, 15 staff out running about, and still there was quite a large queue, especially for the checkout. So it does really show still how strong Maruzen's event is, even being a much smaller scale than we're used to. Even actually the autumn event was larger than this one.
Yeah, and also the inks sold out very fast.
Yeah, the inks is why you want to get there at 9:30. The rest you can call online and get that. And I got some inks this year. I didn't go too crazy. I didn't want to spend too much money on this event this year because it's kind of like a pain in the hassle. I think especially for a pain in the butt for this one. So nonetheless, we all managed to get together, have lunch, talk for I think really the first time in months since the new year, really.
It was nice, especially given everything that's been going on the last week or so.
Yeah. So I think you left afterwards. Myself, Alessa, Quay, some other folks. We went out afterwards across the bridge to Mitsukoshi. Now, we've talked about in the past how Mitsukoshi used to have a dedicated pen corner, and they used to have the Mitsukoshi Pen Fair, which was, I believe, 1 or 2 weeks after Maruzen, right?
Yeah, I think it was 1 week after, and I think it was always a little bit different than Maruzen in the sense that they had not just it wasn't as pen centric, and it wasn't so much focused on the major brands. I remember they had some really unusual ones, like there's this company in Tohoku selling like sapphire glass pens that were very expensive. They went to Mitsukoshi but not Maruzen. You had Kobiha, for example. They brought the Graphilo paper and more to Mitsukoshi. In fact, that's how I discovered Graphilo like 6-7 years ago at this Mitsukoshi event. And they had all kinds of vendors you don't normally see elsewhere. So I think it was a good pen show, but I think people's wallets were empty after Maruzen.
Yeah. So I think, yeah, they were kind of like an unfortunate blip in the calendar where you have Maruzen, people spend all their money, and then there's Mitsukoshi. But as we mentioned earlier, the Mitsukoshi pen that Eboya did for them, the Manten, that was and remains super popular. This is another pen that you couldn't buy even if you had money, right? So, unfortunately, Mitsukoshi had shuttered their pen operations a few years back. And there were some rumblings. I think one of the very first episodes of the podcast, we were talking about a report where Itoya had announced closing their Shibuya store and instead moving into Mitsukoshi Nihonbashi.
Yeah.
And I think a few months later, they stealthily walked back that announcement. I remember they made a big deal out of it.
Yeah, I see a press release or announcement on a website from August 2020 when they said that they canceled those plans.
Yeah, but when they announced it, it was like all over their Instagram, blah blah blah. And then when they canceled it, you had to go to look at this press release, obscure press release up on their website. So Mitsukoshi has not had any pen related, I think, happenings around it for at least 2 years. But I went to Shosaikan the other day, and the staff surprised me saying, hey, we're going to open up a shop, not Shosaikan, we're going to open a different brand shop, but still under the same group company in Mitsukoshi, next weekend. So I was like, oh, wow, okay, is there going to be anything interesting there? And I said, yeah, there's going to be like some interesting stuff, but it's mostly going to be around like, standard stationery stuff, more of like the crowd pleasers, colored pencils, ballpoint pens, blah, 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 blah. I was like, okay, yeah, maybe I'll check it out then. So they opened last Saturday. You've not been there yet, right?
No, I haven't had time yet, no.
Okay, let me describe the store. The store is a classic standard, I would say it's a smaller version of Itoya, like the TLDR version of Itoya on one side, and then on the other side is the TLDR version of Shosaikan.
Okay. So
I think this takes at least, when I was working at a luxury brand, we spent at least 1.5 years, usually 2, to plan the opening of a store, because the first 6 months you're just negotiating with the department store, and then you have the store design, and then you have to actually do it, blah blah blah. The actual making the store takes only about like 3 months, but there's a lot of planning involved. So this must have started or entered negotiations almost immediately after Itoya dropped Mitsukoshi.
So this was Shosaikan's Skunkworks project.
Yeah, I think this is super super smart, because we've been to Shosaikan before, and they've told us, hey, we don't want to do like exclusive every year with Sailor, just like all the other retailers are doing, because we want to maintain this kind of higher brand image. We don't want to just churn out pens after pens after pens. This sub-brand allows them to do that, and I think that's very interesting.
You're saying that Shosaikan is the Lexus, this is the Toyota.
And that's right. Except, Lexus came after Toyota. But yeah, that's absolutely right. Let me stop a bit before I go into the products, right? The name of the store, it's a banger. The name of the store is Stationery Station. You like the name?
This sounds like the kind of name you end up with when you can't find any short domain names. So their Instagram is @Stas Stationery
Station. So it's STAS, and that's kind of their like logo, and then stationary station. So it's all garble, but the store itself is actually pretty cool because I think it really marries, let's say, standard stuff with luxury stuff. And what it does is they've actually got a huge selection of plotter. They've got a huge selection of Graphilo, no Tomoe River, funnily enough. But they have a lot of interesting things that almost feels like they're designed to transition you to the luxury part. And when you're actually in the store, it's very clear which part of the store you're in. It feels like two different stores. So the standard stuff is probably what Mitsukoshi wanted. And the luxury stuff is Shosaika saying, okay, we'll do the standard stuff, but you have to let us bring the luxury stuff as well. So that's pretty cool. And I hope you get to go there very, very soon. Let's talk about the products.
Sure.
They have 2 exclusive pens and 6 exclusive inks. I'm not going to go through all the inks, but I will say that all the inks have a very special story that's related to Mitsukoshi, the founding of Mitsukoshi, the area around it. So really full of storytelling in that. The pens, this time they've done they call it the Shaperi Reddo, which is supposed to be Shaperi Red Decimo. Sorry if I butchered that name. It's a very long Italian name. And this pen is not red, Jacob. It's pink.
I saw photos, and at first I thought they were selling that Oeste Nipponia capless, which looks pretty much like that, except that that just goes from red to white. This one goes from pink reddish to white and then back to pink red, right?
So you'll see in person. So I've seen the Nipponia. The Nipponia is red, right? It's red to white.
Right.
The name of this pen says red, but it's actually a pink color. I would say it's like a shocking pink color. Which is fair because that's what actually Elsa Shaperi did in her designs, which is the inspiration of this pen. It is a shocking pink color. So I would say there's a bit of a difference. And they also do have that kind of meta shine that we've been talking about on this.
Yeah, that seems to be what all the new capless and Decimo pens have. It seems to be the new thing.
Yeah. And then the Nipponia is gold trim, and this one is silver trim. But this, I was surprised. This was very, very popular. I posted about this on my Instagram, and I got like 30, 40 comments just straight off the bat. I was like, wow, I didn't expect this pen to be so popular given that it's a Decimo. But I think this goes back to what we were saying previously about Pilot kind of actually being a little bit more adventurous in the last, I would say, 12 to 18 months.
But also, we know that the capless and the Decimo, they're very popular models everywhere, right? It makes sense for Pilot to focus on those models because they're always selling. I mean, whenever there is a limited edition capless or Decimo, right, it sells out immediately.
Yeah, and this one is for sure. It's very, very pretty. It's very, very beautiful. And I told the staff, hey, let's get this in a full size capless, please. But yeah, so there's this pen, and then there's also a red KOP, which I felt looked kind of like a standard color, or it should have been a standard color. It looks like the Sailor Pro Gear Slim from the Otogi Banashi series, the Princess Kaguya.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
so
and
maybe a bit of a lost opportunity there then, if they could make their own KOP. And again, it's a little bit like when Shosaika could do any custom 823 and then they did basically black one.
Yeah. But I think the most interesting thing about that pen is that all versions of that pen will come with now the new KOP nib, which I don't think we talked about on the podcast, right?
Where did I hear about it? You posted it on you tweeted about that one, right?
I tweeted about this, and the Pen Addict also talked about it on their podcast. So yeah, this will be the new design on the KOP nib. Yeah, but I would say this looks like a very, very nice standard color KOP. It doesn't look like an exclusive to me.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I haven't seen it in person yet, but from the photos, it looked a little bit like a missed opportunity. Yeah.
And they are a new Tonal Limbs partner.
Is that only true for Stationer Station, or I can't even pronounce that name?
Yes.
Stationer Station, or is it also true for Shosaikan?
This is only Stationary Station, I believe. Shosaikan, as far as I know, still don't have Tonal Limbs. Okay. But of the 6 exclusive inks that they have, 2 are from Tonal Limbs, 2 are from Sailor, and 2 are from Tag, which I think is pretty cool.
But the Tag ones, although we talked a few months ago about 2 new tag inks for Shosaikan, are those the same inks?
Not the same inks. Same inks. Yeah. So pretty cool. I was able to sit down and test them all, and they have these kakunos ready for you to test them. So definitely, when you're in Tokyo, I think this is a new destination that you have to check out.
Yeah,
but
like it.
Okay, I've waxed on enough about Stationary Station. The real news is that Stationary Station is bringing back the Mitsukoshi Pen Fair, Jacob.
Yeah, I heard about that, and it's not 1 week after Marzen, it's same day, right?
Yeah, so they did a stealth release. They opened the weekend before Marzen, and then I think it was, just 2 days before Marzen. They're like, hey, welcome. By the way, we're gonna have a pen fair on the same day.
It's happening right now?
It's happening right now. It's still going on. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to go back and see it later. This is, I think, a direct challenge to the Marzen Pen Fair because they actually have people. It actually feels like a pen fair. Let me list out the events that are going on. First of all, there's Ink Numa, where all the regional retailers are sending their inks over to Mitsukoshi, and you can buy them from Mitsukoshi. So this includes the really hard to get Hachimonjiya inks, for example. So I think that's absolutely fantastic.
That's very clever. Yeah.
There's they call this Ink Labo. So this is a ink mixing part. There's Ink Advisor Ken, who's also doing ink mixing, and also obviously you can buy his special inks. I think there are inks you can only buy from him in person, the Jazz series. You have Sailor's Ink Kobo, so where Ishimaru-san mixes you an ink like a cocktail, like a bad bartender. Which is actually a very cool experience. I definitely recommend it. There's Tag Stationary's ink and pen order set, so you can make your own ink sets. So that's just the first page. Second page is Kobo Setsu, the wooden pen guy. There's Kobeha, so that's Graphilo. There's Drillog. There's Post Inaka, which is a store I don't know. There's some deco guys. There's the Sailor Pen Buffet, which is the one where you assemble your own pen. So it's your Build-A-Pen. There's a retailer called Craft A, which is a superb name, and they're also a wooden pen and fountain pen place. And then the last page is the Pilot Pen Clinic. The Pilot, you know how they have the writing pressure kind of fortune telling thing with their machine. So they have that where you write on a machine and they tell you which nib size you should use and what that means about like your personality. They have Mr. Nib Shaper, Nagahara Yukio-san. And they have Hirai, they have Eboya, and they have Ohashido. So they are, I think, they're pulling out the big guns there.
So Ohashido and Eboya and Hirai, they just walking back and forth between Maruzen and Mitsukoshi then, because they are
That's
both
right.
ends.
That's right. I think it's good. I think it's great. And what's interesting is that they're not doing it on the same days. So the pilot guys are there on the 5th and the 6th, which is today and tomorrow. Nagahara is going on Monday to Wednesday. Eboya is going next Saturday and Sunday. And then Ohashido is going on the Monday and Tuesday after. So you have to, keep going.
Yeah, that's clever. The other thing that's clever is that they seem to have something a little bit for everyone here. Because again, going back to Maruzen, what you have at Maruzen is basically inks and stuff that starts at 50,000 yen. So if you already have Maruzen inks and you're not willing to spend like a big chunk of your monthly salary on a pen, then there's not really anything for you at Maruzen, right? But if you want to go to Mitsukoshi, you can get a nib grind, or you can get some Graphilo paper, or blend your own ink. Yeah, that sounds very, very good.
Yeah, it's definitely a smart thing to do, I think, for Mitsukoshi. And to me, that shows that Mitsukoshi, they're not out of the fountain pen, or they're not out of the luxury pens game yet. They want to stay in this field. They've been out for a few years. Now they're back.
Yeah, I wonder if it just was a matter of like issues with how the old area was managed, or if it has to do with them sensing that this is becoming more and more popular and we need to be in this space.
Yeah, and it's also not in the same place as it used to be. So the pen fair, I think, used to be on the 7th floor. This is now on the 5th floor. It's a dedicated space to it, and it's really interesting because this shop is the stationery. I would say the stationery corner, like almost the official one now of Mitsukoshi. And around them is a separate, smaller event space, and yeah, when I went, it was like urushi art. It was really like an artistic corner or artistic floor for them. So I think it's pretty cool.
The only thing about Mitsukoshi, and this is true with Maruzen too, I guess, to an extent, but it's not really trendy in a sort of young, fashionable kind of way, no. Right? It's where you buy a graduation gift for your grandson.
Well, that's interesting because this is the last point I wanted to make also about Mitsukoshi. There is actually a very practical reason why Shosaikan would want to come fill in the space, because they don't really need to, right? Like they've got their corners, and you're not selling like all these fancy pens all of a sudden just because you open a store. In Japan, the department stores usually almost always have a loyalty program that's with the department store, not with the retail shop.
Yeah.
So the top VIP customers are what in Japan they call gaisho. When I worked at the luxury brand that I used to work at, we were, I would say, the number one in some countries, number two in other countries, luxury brand. And we would design special collections just for these special VIPs. And these special VIPs, they would buy stuff that's like 5 to 6 digits in price, US dollars. So really, really expensive stuff. And this would be made out of like shark skin, crocodile skin, these exotic skins with like crazy colors. Normally in Japan, you can't sell crazy colors because I think it's more conservative. But these guys, right, or these girls, are really there to buy something one of a kind. So my conjecture is that Shosaikan wanted the access to these customers. We call them gaisho customers, which if you look at the word, literally means outside the sales, so outside regular sales. You have this gaisho event where you invite all the VIPs, they come over and they will pre-order the stuff that's not even made, wait 6 months and have it delivered to their door. I think that's why Shosaikon's there.
And we talked about that before, but that's probably those kind of customers, I imagine, are the kind of customers that Shosaikon's current store has, or at least they're trying to target, given the location, given how they are designed the store. I imagine you had, private equity managers going there to buy a very fancy urushi pen to celebrate the leverage buyout.
Yeah, and in fact, they have those fancy emperors, the Makie emperors, and it has a price, but it also says not for sale. It's made to order only. So, and it's a deceptively small part of the store display, but I think it's a big reason why they're actually now, Mitsukoshi is not the easiest place to go, right? It's not there's not much else going there. It's a business district. It's not like, if you go there, the average age is like 50.
Right.
Yeah. So I think it's definitely there are two reasons. One, they're cultivating the standard pens folks to luxury pens, and then second, to tap into this gaisho market.
Makes sense.
All right. So that's been the droning on about the events. You've had an episode against FOMO.
Well, so 2 weeks ago, I suddenly decided I needed a mechanical pencil. But the thing is, I don't use mechanical pencils, and I didn't have a sudden need for a mechanical pencil. It wasn't anything sensible. It wasn't anything irrational like that. The only reason why I decided I needed a mechanical pencil was that my Twitter feed and my Instagram feed was full of people talking about how exciting and, more importantly, how hard to get this new Kurutoga dive was. So I wasn't so much attracted to, it wasn't so much the pen itself, but these stores about how hard it is to buy them. So there were this website that listed all of these major stationery stores around the country, and these guys may have restocked now. I know now they're out of stock, and there was this Twitter feed from Loft over here. They might have it now. So for that reason alone, I started looking for this pen, which is absolutely silly, but that's how it was. So I went to Marsen because I had reason to go to Marsen anyway, and at first I had kind of mild curiosity, so I asked them, do you have this Kurutoga dive? And they just basically laughed at me and said, no, it's sold out long ago, right? So then I said, okay, let's check Itoya, because I wanted to get art supplies at Itoya anyway. So I went there, and I asked them, and it's the same thing. They basically laughed me out of the store. Like, are you crazy? No, it's sold out, and we don't know. More importantly, we don't know. We don't know A, if it's limited edition, and B, we don't know if it's ever going to get restocked and when. Okay, so let's go to Ginza 6. Nothing there. So then I went to Loft in Ginza. Which, by the way, I'm not sure if you've been there. I haven't been there since they moved from the old location at Kokusai Forum. And
No, I've been there.
They had this big stationary floor. They got Ferris wheel pressings and whatnot. And I asked them, and same thing, I was laughed out of the store. Like, are you crazy? No. And it was very obvious that I was like the 200th person that asked them that question. They were just bored with those questions, right? Okay, so let's go to Tokyo Hands, basically next door. Same thing. And then my last stop for the day was Tokyo Hands in Daimara, which is not that far away. And the same thing, they said, no, sold out, we don't know.
Wait, so you went to 6 stores and you got laughed out of every single one of them?
Yes. So
that's great.
So they all said, we don't have it. It's sold out. We don't know if it's limited edition. We don't know if we're ever going to get restocked. We don't know anything. That was what everyone said to me.
Mm-hmm.
So then I gave up that day, but then like 2 or 3 days later we had this public holiday, and then I read online that there were rumors that some Tokyo's Hands stores were getting restocked. I thought, let's try a Tokyo Hands that is not in a city center but a bit further out. So I went to Tokyo Hands in Tokyo Bay, Lalaport, and they had just restocked, and it was limited to one per person. And I managed to presumably this has been, I think this is one of the most scalped pens right now in Japan. So they're limited to one per person, and I managed to finally get one.
Yep. And you wrote a very detailed post about this pen, right?
Yeah, I mean the pen itself is kind of interesting. It's got a cap which is unusual for a mechanical pencil, because normally you need to use the knock all the time to extend the lead, right? So if you have a cap, then you can't reach the knock. But the main, or one of the main features of this pen is that you don't need, there is actually a knock. I thought it wasn't a knock, but there is a knock, but you don't need to use it when you're writing, because the lead extends as you write. And it has this most satisfying magnetic cap. So both when you cap it and also when you post it, you had this very satisfying click. So I understand why it's popular, and I understand why, Kohinata and others are just raving about it. And I saw, this Bongo, what was his name? Bongo, this guy who...
Yeah, Bongo. Yeah.
I had to admire his passion. He posted a 90-minute video detailing the mechanism in Kurutoga Dive, and not only that, he had created his own scaled up foam model of the mechanism, so that he could show exactly how it worked. Yeah, I just love that whole video and how much work he put into his
we have to
model.
put that in the show notes.
Yeah.
I guess people don't call him Bunguo for nothing, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, he's crazy in the best possible way. So I really enjoyed it. But what I was going to say is that, as interesting as this pen is, if I could have bought it on Amazon, or if I could just walk into my local stationery store and get it, I probably wouldn't have bought it. It wasn't so much the pen as there was this chase. How can I find it? Like every time someone told me that it's not available, every time I wanted it more, right? So at the end, I just had to have this pen. So I keep telling myself that I don't fall for FOMO. I'm not chasing Sailor pens or whatever, but no.
Yeah. I think that it's so funny. And we actually haven't really seen these self-extending mechanisms in a while, but this, I guess, technology is actually not new. I've sent you a link to a Pen Addict Instagram post. I actually gifted the Pen Addict a set of these pens before. And what's interesting is that, first of all, the pens are from Pilot, which I don't think is a big surprise. It was a tsukaiste, so in the past, you used to just throw these pens away. Like, you wouldn't keep them. So you couldn't refill them. And the kicker is that it didn't work very well. So I tried to do the self-extending thing, but it didn't really work, which probably explains why Pilot, is not making these anymore. But from what I can see, the Kurutoga one actually works really well.
Yeah. But I think what was even more interesting about it is how they are rolling out this pen, because they didn't even announce it. And last time I checked, maybe it has changed now, but when I did my Instagram post, I checked Mitsubishi Pencil's website, and there's no information about this pen at all. It's like a stealth release. So it surprised many. I mean, it even surprised Kohinata, even surprised Bungo. They didn't know about it until reports started showing up on Twitter and elsewhere. So I think that's so interesting how this viral campaign almost,
Yeah, it's the next Bitcoin, guys. Invest in Kuritoga Dives now.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at second-hand prices on Mercari, it's better return on your investments than Solana coins.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. I think it's great that there are these innovative items coming out. Yeah, it's a cool one for sure. Definitely better than Bitcoin. Bitcoin's dropped 8% in the last week, in the last 24 hours.
Yeah, this one is holding its value for now.
All right, yeah. Some pilot news.
Yeah, there were two things, right? So first of all, Pilot released new Kakuno pens. They call it Kakuno Family Series. So these are translucent Kakunos with new nib engravings. So there's one called Kakuno Papa, with a tie, and there's a Kakuno Mama with a necklace, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a Kakuno Boy with a big smile, Kakuno Girl with a little ribbon thing, and a Kakuno Baby with a pacifier.
Yeah, this has been remarked to me several times. This is a cute release.
Yeah.
This it's very gendered, but very cute. And you can just, buy the ones that you want and mix and match whatever family you have, right? So I think the only thing that they're missing is like the non-binary one, but I think the standard Kakunos are pretty non-binary, and so is this Kakuno Boy. It's actually kind of non-binary as well.
Yeah, it is.
They have this like weird eyelash thing going on.
I saw that.
Well, with the Mama one, they've got like two weird eyelashes, and then the Kakuno Girl, once you see it, you can't unsee it, but it looks like she's giving a middle finger from her eyes.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is adorable. I think this is very smart.
And I think we talked before. You talked about Pilot posted like a story, like an in-depth article on their website, describing how this whole Kakuno came to be and how they weren't sure there was a market for this kind of pen. Mm-hmm. But I see the Kakuno absolutely everywhere. Like, this is the one pen that seems to be like, if you go to a very small stationery store, in on the countryside or whatever, they might have just one fountain pen, and that would be the Kakuno. I wouldn't be surprised. I don't have any numbers, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's the best-selling fountain pen in Japan.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's also 1,000 yen, so it's very, very cheap.
Yes.
So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised by volume if this was the bestseller as well. I don't know by margin, but yeah, by volume for sure. And I'm curious because they've been a little less adventurous with their fountain pens for years now, right? I mean, they haven't released a new model in a decade. This is the last new model that they released in 2013.
When was the custom Urushi? It was fairly recently.
I don't remember, but you can find that on the custom history website. But for sure, this is the newest, I think, kind of new model. My question, which I think is an interesting one, why are they doing this? Why are they making new family or Kakunos, if not to transition these customers into their higher end pens? They could have done this with standard pens, but they didn't. They chose to do it with the fountain pen.
You mean that this new series is sort of an on-ramp to the fancier pens?
So I don't think it's a direct connection to the fancier pens, but I think the only reason why you would invest in making these like playful versions of a wildly successful pen that you already have, right? Is to eventually bring them upstream, bring your customers upstream so that they buy the more profitable items, right? So I'm sure Pilot as a company, you're not happy if one of your customers buys Kakno for the rest of their lives.
I think they also just feel the need to refresh the lineup, right? Which they do every once in a while anyway, right? Well, maybe not so much with the fountain pens, but with other like standard pens, roll balls, and so on. Like you want people to be excited about new models, right? You need to refresh every once in a while. And they have over the years added new Kakuno colors, the all clear one and then like the dark ones and so on. So this is maybe just the next one. And maybe these are a bit more collectible than the other ones. Maybe you want the whole family.
So they released 6 colors on release in 2013. Then 4 more colors in 2014. 3 years later, they released the clear one. And then now, 5 years later, they released these 5 new colors. Yeah. So we'll see. I'm hoping that they bring these colors up upstream as well. I think this would be really cute. They kind of stealth released the new custom colors on the 912, which I think is pretty cool, but we won't talk about it this time because we're running out of time.
So can we just quickly talk about the new pigmented inks, because I think it's interesting. So first of all, so Pilot has released, or I think yesterday they released 3
on the 28th.
On the 20th, it was announced on the 28th. They're available as of yesterday, right? Since yesterday, yeah. So these are 3 new pigmented inks by Pilot. So there's kind of basic colors. There's black and blue. But what is interesting is the fact that they're doing this. So they have, we know that Pilot has had pigmented ink for a while. If you go to these art supply stores like Sekaido, you have these Pilot like Shokenyo inks, which are not for fountain pens. It's like a warning on the saying that this is not for fountain pens. So those things are popular for manga artists and calligraphers, right? But as far as I know, can't remember having seen any pigmented fountain pen friendly inks from Pilot before. But there's definitely something of a pigmented ink trend going on. So obviously, Kakimori has now for a few years sold pigmented inks. Bongbox, I think they announced last year during Tips, pigmented inks. Sailor, we didn't cover that today, but Sailor has announced or had refreshed the lineup of Storia pigmented inks, and now Pilot. So there's something going. I'm not quite sure what it is, but there's clearly something going on here with pigmented inks.
Yeah, and if you look at the box, it looks like a Numa box, but when you look at the actual product, it doesn't look like a Numa product.
Yeah, that's the hilarious part. It almost looked like we talked about it on Instagram or whatever it was, but it's like the anti-Numa ink bottles, right? This looks like, they're targeting the Wagner crowd. So
I'm reading the product page now, and it says it's a pigmented ink designed for fountain pens, and it's water resistant and light resistant as well, and it leaves a deep but fresh line. This looks like a standard pigment ink to me. They have a warning on the bottom. It said there are some pens that you cannot use this on, and the pens that you cannot use this on are pens with makie or urushi lacquered, which makes no sense because they don't lacquer the sections. You cannot use these on plunger type fountain pens, which means the 823. You cannot use this on screw type fountain pens, which means the custom Heritage 92. And you cannot use this on the Justice 95, which uses a converter. So what pen can you use this on?
Yeah, that confused me. I'm not sure what I mean, especially Justice.
Okay, so it says you can use this in pens that use the Con 40 and the Con 70N. But that's what the Justice uses.
Yeah, Justice is one that confused me the most. But I think one thing, I mean, relates to the second thing they're announcing on the same page here is this cleaning kit. So I think the cleaning kit is meant for cartridge converter pens, right?
Yep.
So the idea is that if you use this ink in a cartridge converter pen, you can use the cleaning kit to get it clean, right? But you can't use this cleaning kit with a custom Hades 92 or a custom 823.
Well, surprise, surprise, Pilot. Folks have been using pigmented inks in your pens for a very, very long time now.
We know that if pigmented ink dries out in the feed, it can be more of a hassle to clean, right? It's not an intractable problem, but it's more work to clean, right? So they probably don't want to have a lot of people coming with their piston fillers that are dried out. I can understand why they are saying that.
For sure. And Sailor did something similar, right? They released this mixable Storia ink, which, to me, this goes back to, again, you're talking about the pigmented ink trend. I think this is going on there, right? Kakimori and Bunga Box, they're both using Turner inks. Sailor's coming out with them. Obviously, Platinum has Carbon Black. They don't have the colors yet, but Sailor always had their Storia lineup, which was and still is very, very popular, and now Pilot as well. Now, these Sailor inks, these mixable inks, they look like the standard Storia inks, but in a different package.
Yeah, I can't tell what's new other than, as you say, the packaging, the bottle.
But they have the thinner, they have the usumeki, so you can the idea is that you can make them lighter and paler while you mix them.
I think we need to ask Kaoru why she released what the idea behind the Bongbox pigmented inks were. Because she usually she has a finger on the pulse. She knows what's popular and why it's possible. I would love to hear.
I asked her.
I would ask her.
I asked her. We'll save that, but I did ask her.
Okay.
All right. Let's close this off with some fun stuff. I think the Sailor stuff. So they released a few more items. Very quickly, they released this thing called the harappa. You talked about I think it was the Mizamo, right?
Yeah, I think it was Minamo, so like
Minamo,
creatures
Minamo.
around the water surface. I think the English name for that set is like swimmers. Which was, it was kind of whimsical. It was like polar bear, and it was a swan, and then it was like crawling, right?
Yeah.
And what we said was it's a good idea to sell like a cheap low end what is it Profit Junior, right, and 3 rebottled Ink Studio inks. It's a good idea, but our complaint last time was that they chose the 3 most boring colors in the whole Ink Studio lineup. Right, basic red, basic blue, basic green. So this time they have chosen more interesting colors, right? It's like a gray, bluish, and then an orange. What's the third one? I don't have it in front of me.
Gray, blue, and orange. But on the Instagram press release, it says that it's the 223 for every color. So I think they made a mistake on the Instagram, but it's 223, 243, and 473, and we know that at least the 2-3 series are pretty cool inks. I think the 223 is particularly popular as kind of the legible version of the 123, right? The theme this time is harappa ni arawareru ikimono, so creatures that show up in the open plains. So they have I don't even know what this creature is.
I think like an anteater. And a rabbit.
Yeah.
And what was the third one?
And putter golf. It's a guy putting.
Mini golf.
Yeah. Very whimsical. But these are not new colors. We talked about that last episode. These are repackaged colors.
I think this is a good idea, though. And for some reason the previous set was a good idea. You have this. This is basically an Inkunuma starter kit, right? You get an affordable fountain pen, and you get 3 interesting inks to start with. And in this case, the inks actually do look kind of interesting, so I like it.
It's fun. My hope for this is that they'll eventually change the names of their Ink Studio inks to these, because my goodness, it's terrible to remember the 100 numbers for each of the inks. It's like, oh, what ink is that? So I hope that they eventually repackage them all, and then we won't have the numberings, we'll have just the names.
Yeah, I'm all for that. I like the labels they created for these things too.
Yeah, they're definitely cute. All right, and I think that's the end of the episode. Anything else?
No, I think we're out of time. We could always talk for another few hours, but let's save that for next episode.
Yeah, shall do. Yeah, then that's been the episode. Thanks everybody so much for listening in. Helps us a lot if you tell your friends about the show. Helps us a lot if you post about us on Reddit, Facebook, Instagram, whatever medium it is that you connect with your pen community. And yeah, we hope you enjoyed this very lengthy discussion about the pen events that have been happening in the past week, and we'll see you next time. This has been episode 52. My name is CY. You can find me on my website at tokyostationpens.com, on Instagram at tokyostationpens, and on Twitter at tokyostationmnh.
And my name is Jacob. I'm Fudefan on Instagram and on Twitter, and have a blog at fudefan.com.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.